Like it's What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Frank After 40. And today we have a exciting guest. I wouldn't say special. It's definitely special, but exciting guest. I am very excited to have this conversation because, and I'm going to let Lynne introduce herself here in a second. But I am excited to talk about food today. I'm excited to talk about food. I'm excited to talk about health and fitness, the relationship with us and our food, and any insights you have for us, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot. But welcome, Lynne Bowman.
Thank you so much, Frank. And as you know already, I could talk about this all day and all night. And I blame it all on being a grandma, and I get to do that now, right? So,
I
and
love it.
my children have always accused me of, having recipes in every sentence. No matter what we're talking about, I find a way to turn it into a recipe. So I'll try to hold myself back a little bit there, but yeah, food. Um, it's a thing that we have not honored, I think, in this culture, in America particularly, and we're paying a price for it. I mean, I just saw some new statistics yesterday about how we are the richest, unhealthiest country.
Yep,
Um,
that's true.
how can that even be? It's
Yeah,
yeah,
it's sad. Is really is what it is sad. But I'm excited to hear your journey. Most of the people that are going to listen to this know that my sister had breast cancer about 9 years ago. And that's what sent me on I've always, was in shape and the gym and that kind of stuff, but sent me down the journey on food and some other things. And that's when I really went down a rabbit hole and started to realize what you're talking about now. But it's timely, I think. We'll talk about your book, we'll talk about what's going on. But I want everyone to get as much value from this as possible. And but I just happened to be on a trip through Europe with my family, and we were in like Bavaria, Austria, Switzerland, and Germany, and that kind of stuff. And wow, what a difference with the food. I was really interested to see what the differences were, and how they're eating there versus what we eat here, and the water. And we could go on and on. I won't want to get too off topic, but so much better there when it comes to drinking water out of the faucet versus here it's like you're rolling the dice, but there you're drinking basically straight off the Alps. So anyway, I think it's a good conversation. I want to have that today. I would love to know, though, as we always do, we always start like early life. So I'm interested to know how you did you have anybody in your family that was a cook, or anybody that focused on food? Or what do you see that's the biggest difference based on your experience? I know there was a certain point in time in your life probably that made you focus on the food, but talk to me about early life, and like, is there any correlation to what you ended up doing compared to where you started out?
absolutely. And when I go back, it's always okay. Here's the story. It's not a particularly happy one,
Mm-hmm.
but my mother died when I was 18. And she had been unwell for a long time. And so my relationship with her was largely around her chronic disease, which in her case was kidney disease. And which, by the way, it's changed. Medicine has changed, but most people who have kidney disease and are on dialysis now at $100,000 a year or $300,000 a year are there because they were untreated diabetics. So just dropping that one for you.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And that's why I'm here yelling at everybody about this.
So
But
before we leave that topic, I just want to ask real quick questions. I don't want to forget. So if that's the case, are you aware of signs or symptoms that someone might be dealing with that might be going unchecked, and what could they do to help themselves if that's the case? Or do you not know? Like
okay,
natural stuff.
here's the hard part.
No
Diabetes
slight.
doesn't necessarily show up in any symptoms. But if you are over 40,
Mm.
apropos to your subject matter, and especially if you are overweight, but not exclusively. I was not when I was diagnosed. I was normal, or what was considered normal weight. But everybody needs to go and get a hemoglobin A1C test as a
Mhm.
part of their regular health care. And if your numbers are over the limit, then guess what? You need to change the way you're eating and the way you're moving. And I add to that the way you're sleeping. Um, and we can hit each of those points.
Mhm.
And you probably already know this, but let's keep talking about it because
Yes.
people aren't doing it.
No.
Um, and it's preventable. This is
Well,
a
it's never been
prevent.
easier. It's never been easier either. I tell people, you have like, I can name off the top of my head at least three companies that you can get online, schedule a blood draw. They'll come to my office, pull the blood, and in 2 days, it's online. And they're like, here's a full profile, like done. So
Yeah.
I
And
agree.
I'm a member of Kaiser, which, is only available in certain parts of the country, but I'll tell you, they are really good at community healthcare. And they're not brilliant at everything, but they are definitely going in the right direction. And I hope one day, before too long, that we will all have national, statewide, whatever, countywide community medicine, because it's mostly prevention. If
Mhm.
you would just do what I tell you, then you're not going to wind up being operated on or on a machine or whatever. It's breathtaking how much disease in this country didn't need to happen. And it's really simple. And I'm going to start right now. I'm going to say it, and I'm going to keep pitching it. And it's in the book. It's whole food, real food, mostly plants. That's it. How hard can that be? Well, everybody says, no, it's too hard. It's too expensive. I can't do it. You cannot do it eating out of a bag in the back of a car. I'll guarantee you. No, you can't. Everybody
Yeah.
needs to chop something, to
I
cook
think
a
that's
little
a big,
something.
I think that's one of the biggest issues is I don't want to be disrespectful and just blanket everybody with laziness. That's a piece of it. There's no doubt people are lazier, but to cook their own food. But I think there's also a piece of education and like understanding that that's even happening. And then I think it's also the fact that people are working more. I think it's a little bit of everything.
It is. And we it's a matter of what you value,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to invite everyone to think hard about what you really value. And everyone, and I always say, I had 3 kids, single mom, crazy lot. I had a homicidal ex chase me around the country. I mean, I've got stories, but I managed to put dinner on the table every night because guess why? I valued it. I thought it was important. I was not going to die and leave my kids. That was, going back to the story about my mom. What I learned from that was, I mean, my life in a way ended when she died. My house was gone. My dog was gone. My dad was gone. My siblings were gone. All of a sudden, because the mom was gone, my whole life was gone. Um, Looking
Was your
back,
dad gone before that?
well, he was still
Or
alive, but as
okay.
many men do, he was very quickly involved with another woman, remarried quickly, and was out of my life in a big way.
Wow.
Um,
Okay.
so, he was still around, but we didn't have a family life anymore, and there was no family home anymore, and so on.
Gotcha.
So, um, my that was what got me started big time. I'd always loved to eat, you know, and I had learned to cook in a rudimentary kind of way because my mom was not well. So, things needed to be done, and I did them with her encouragement. And so, as time went on, and I was a single mom with all these kids, and I mean, a pretty high pressure career from the get go. um, I learned that my social life and my health were all tied up in getting people around my table, my kitchen table, to eat my food. So the food had to be cheap, pretty darn good, and I had to be able to get it on the table in 15 minutes. So That's my superpower. And my kids now, it's, so interesting. My kids are now in their late 40s. My son's going to be 50 pretty soon, a few weeks. How
He's
does that
not too
happen?
far from me. I'll be 49 this year, so he's right with me.
Okay. And they have all, in their different ways, said to me recently, fairly recently, "Hey, Ma, we kind of got an MBA sitting at your kitchen table." Um, because that was the conversation. I brought my clients home, my friends, we sat around the table with the kids and ate. My kids knew how to eat at a table, how to pass the salt, how to set a table, how to clean a table, and how to be a good guest at a table, how to be a good host at a table. That was our family culture. And I'm not talking, about being wealthy or in any
Mhm.
way,
Yeah.
you know,
It's not
I-
that
it
you don't need money to do these things. You just need to take the time.
you need to value it. And I will admit to being sort of pathologically frugal, which you need to be if you're raising a bunch of kids, and
For sure.
more now than you used to. So also, to me, it's not just the health of the food that's on your plate, it's the culture about what's on your plate and how you eat it and how you share it. How can we forget that? Food is love. Food is hospitality. Food is generosity. Food is so many other things. We're human. We were intended as creatures to share food with
Mhm.
people. And I don't believe that meant out of a paper bag in the back of a car.
I just don't think anybody has there's a lot of people I feel like that just never had that experience. They don't growing up in the type of family I had, which was an Italian family, it was like everything was around dinner and food and so you right? So that's my experience. Fast food was like a maybe once in a while. But some people if they grew up on fast food, they don't know what my
I don't
normal
know.
was and I don't know what their normal was. So it's just like and so my what I wonder is and I'm interested to get your take on this. What's the solution? I guess it's getting the word out on podcasts, stuff like this. But how, if someone doesn't randomly come across an experience, a loved one dying, a disease, blood work that they first have to know they even should get, and getting a bad results, how are they ever going to stumble across this? Right now, thank goodness, you've got this movement where you've got Bobby Kennedy, and he's in office, and he's starting to really tackle and go up against a lot of different things that need change, which is great. But how many people would that reach? I don't know because people really aren't paying attention, I feel like. And so thank
Yeah,
goodness you're doing
and
a cookbook and you're getting the word out. But
it's one podcast at a time, one
yeah.
conversation at a time. And we were talking a little earlier about this. I've seen such a sea change since I started doing this. My book came out in 2021. And at that time, no one wanted to talk about sugar free.
Hmm.
And I always got the same look. It was like, no, no, thanks. Like, how
Yeah.
can you even? And particularly about things like alternative sweeteners,
Hmm.
artificial sweeteners. And I
Yeah.
don't want to leave this podcast without telling everybody what the real scoop is on artificial
Oh, I
sweeteners.
can't wait to talk about that.
Okay. And when you talk about Kennedy, there are a lot of things he's saying that I agree with. And there's some other stuff that you just go, oh, whoa, wait a minute, you know.
Hmm.
Um, so we always have to look with a grain of salt, as it were,
Hmm.
about health information coming from podcasts, coming from
Sure.
online. Some of it's good, some of it ain't so good,
I agree. I agree. Um, okay, let's have the conversation of sweeteners because I think it's an interesting conversation. So I think when you say sweetener, I think the first problem is the word sweetener
Yeah.
because I think Splenda, right? That's what I think. But the good news is, and and I'll ask you because I don't know, but I know just from trying to be healthy, you got xylitol, erythritol, monk fruit, uh, a bunch of them that I'm not remembering, but there's all these different things, right? So sugar being, what it is, it's really hard to try and get two things, in my opinion, that I see nowadays. I focus on protein and low sugar. Those are the two really important things, other than like crappy ingredients. So what do you recommend in your cookbook? Because I think this is important. Like, I've always found that it's tough. Some things I'll get and I'm like, wow, they nailed this. Like, I got some granola in the mail recently and I was like, this tastes great. I cannot taste the artificial sweetener. And then sometimes I get something and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so bad. And I think it's trial and error. You find some stuff and you're like, great. And then those are the things you keep getting. And then some you're like, ugh. But how do you battle that?
I got a fix for that.
All right, let's hear it.
Yes. Read, period, the period, label, period. Don't buy anything in a bag or a box unless you read the label all the way down. Because
For sure.
let's first talk about what sugar is. I'm not talking about peaches and lemons and whole food that becomes sugar in your body or tastes sweet. Whole food. No, that's not what we're talking about. When I say sugar, what I mean is a manufactured product, usually cane sugar, but not always, which is, or it could be, high fructose corn syrup, a manufactured sweetener that is in everything in a box or a bag that you buy at the store. And I promise you, and many of you are going, yeah, I know. Yes, if you really are religious about reading those labels, you will find that there is some kind of sucralose or sucrose or
Something. For
something.
sure.
Yeah. So, and as a controlled, very healthy, crabby old diabetic, I will tell you that I've been doing this since I was in my 40s because I knew that was what was going to keep me alive. So I read every label and I researched and I studied, and things have changed and there are new things happening now. And the big food was coming out all the time with fabulous new sweeteners. Well, no, they weren't. But now let's cut to the chase. There's two that I want you to enjoy fully, because I want you to quit sugar. I don't want you to cut back. I want you to quit. And the reason for that is that sugar, all the ones we were talking about, the manufactured sugar, it is addictive. Lots of science out there. It's as addictive as heroin, literally. And the
Yeah.
mice, so yeah. So for you to really be healthy, you need to not eat it. And then I'll say, you know what? Every once a month or once every 2 months, if you have 2 bites of somebody's special homemade thing, it's all right. But what's going to happen when you actually quit sugar is that in about 3 weeks, your saliva changes, your chemistry changes, because you've been feeding this stuff in your body, and your body will adjust always to whatever you're eating. So in about 3 weeks, you will lose your taste for sugar. And what happens is it just tastes too sweet to you and you don't crave it anymore. And so in order to get there and to stay there, I want to recommend 2 products, which are whole foods. One, yes, monk fruit. It's a very good sweetener. It's konjac fruit, which also is called monk fruit. And be sure that you read the label, because it's very often cut with erythritol to make it cheaper. And that is not a sweetener that you want. It causes digestive problems. Many people don't like the flavor, so on. So monk fruit, konjac fruit, number 1. But
Can I guess the second one? I'm going to be wrong, but I'm excited to hear what you say. Is it dates?
No.
Okay.
Dates are good food. They're whole food.
Yeah.
They are very highly glycemic, which if you're diabetic, you're looking out of, okay, if I'm going to choose among the fruits, I want to choose one that maybe is not so high on the glycemic index.
Like berries, like blueberries, raspberries, or no?
No, those are good.
Oh, okay.
Those
Yeah. That's what I mean. Yeah. Those are low glycemic.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry,
The
I derailed you. What was the second one? I'm sorry.
these are really good conversations, Frank, because you are asking what everybody wants to know,
Mm-hmm.
really, I think,
Yeah.
about this. And I forget because I'm me.
Well, you're the expert, and that's why there's a difference. I just want to tell everybody there's a difference between someone like me who does it because I'm just passionate about it, and then someone who has to do it because their life depends on it.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
so, yes, so even though I put a lot of time into it, just because I'm interested and it's a passion of mine, that's different. Like you, it's a big deal. It's a bigger deal.
It is.
So anyway, I'm learning while we're talking because this is important to me, and I want to hear
I
what you say.
before I do my reveal, my big reveal. I also, don't you love this about
Yeah,
the internet now?
give
Clickbait.
it to us.
Yeah, no, we're all talking like Joe Rogan now. I don't know what happened. Um, anyway, very important to note that I know I'm not alone with this. My youngest daughter just had her a recurrence of breast cancer, and this is something that many of us, I mean, the numbers are going up, and we're all dealing with this. Finally, she came away from her appointments with her oncologist with a diet. And guess what? The oncologists are telling us now no sugar.
I can't. That's shocking that they gave her a diet. Thank goodness. That's a
Yes,
great sign that we're actually turning the ship around.
yes,
But
yes, yes. Finally, the medical establishment is acknowledging, oh, crazy, that food matters. That what you put in your body has something to do with your health and longevity.
wow,
Woohoo! We're there. So,
about time.
and I don't want to make too much light of it because I want everyone to understand how serious it is that if you want to prevent kidney disease, prevent cancer to the extent that you can, which is extensive. I mean, you can.
Yeah.
Big one is no sugar. So then next, how do you get to no sugar? One, I've already told you, you got to quit.
Yeah.
Quit, quit, quit. The way to quit is to start using allulose. Terrible name, Allulose. It is one ingredient. The only ingredient in it is allulose. It's squished out of, I think, corn husks or something, but it's a food product.
Okay.
No calories, doesn't upset your stomach, and it's a marvelous sweetener. And it also, for you cooks, it caramelizes beautifully, which also tells you something. That chemically it's food, you
So
know.
so does it? So that is this the number two? So you're saying monk fruit and allulose? Is that what you're saying? The sweetener?
Put allulose first because I find it easier to work with allulose than with monk fruit, but they're both good. Yeah.
Okay. And I have another question that maybe I'm not sure if you know this or not, or maybe it's just not a good question. This ties into something else besides sugar, but just for a second. So are you familiar, or do you get into like GMO and non-GMO stuff, or no?
Eh, of course.
Okay.
Um, of course. I'm a food.
Just okay. I didn't know. So then my
So
question is, so my brain goes, it comes from corn, and I'm not, fine. But then you have the GMO. Is it because the GMO, genetically modified corn, has stuff in it that you don't want? So does that transfer when you extract the allulose, or no? I don't know if that's a little bit advanced, but does it, or do you
no,
know?
I can't give you a really, really educated answer on that
Okay, I
because
was just curious.
one of my next projects is to actually go to the allulose people
Mm,
and see how they do it
yes.
and know more than I know now. However, by reading the label, and there's more than one company putting allulose out. I have never seen anything coming from those companies that bothered me.
Okay.
And I will also qualify myself. I live in an agricultural area. I live in what is kind of maybe the epicenter, the West Coast epicenter of regenerative agriculture.
Where are you
So
at?
I'm in Pescadero, California.
Okay.
So I'm about, I don't know, 12 miles over the hill from Stanford, but my neighbors are all cattle and sheep and goats and
Yeah.
the people who work them. And I know their names, the people and the goats. And the chickens I've held.
Yeah.
You know, we see ag very differently than a lot of people. There, you will not see any factory farms around here. And I'm happy to say that a number of highly influential people who came out of the tech um, explosion have come into this kind of agriculture and are really working hard to help people understand what we need to do to have a healthier food supply. So, yes, it's a great question. And on our next interview, when I'm back, I'll have a great answer for you because I will have done the
Awesome.
research with the company
Yeah, I love
that
that.
I'm talking to. Yeah. But when it comes to right now, it may not be absolutely perfect, but it's a dang good way to quit sugar but here's the thing, you have to make food for yourself.
Hmm.
There's no way around it, really. And my book, Brownies for Breakfast, the brownies, I'll tell you what's in them. Pumpkin, right out of the
Okay.
can of pumpkin, a jar of nut butter, and you can use cashew butter or almond butter, and you know that that's really good food. The pumpkin's great food, the nut butter's great food, and then allulose, eggs or an egg substitute if you're vegan, some cinnamon, baking soda, I forget what else, the sweetener. And then you mix it up in one bowl and you put it in a pan and you bake it. And I absolutely promise you, write to me if you don't agree. I promise you, you've never had a better brownie. You know, they're fudgy and rich and yummy, and they don't give you a tummy ache. And then here's the best part, you eat one or two of them, and you go, okay, I'm good. Because it's food, it's real, nourishing food.
I'm guessing
I
there's
just,
cocoa powder in it.
oh, yeah, yeah, that
Okay.
might
I
have.
figure I just making sure. Got it. Okay.
Just plain cocoa with nothing else,
Yeah.
just
What are your
brown.
on that subject? I guess this would not qualify because it has sugar. I don't eat a lot of sweets, even though I have a sweet tooth. I love sweets, but I've cut way back. I have virtually no sugar. I still have sugar, but virtually.
Frank, I've got the book for you. You can eat donuts, pie, cakes. It's all in there,
I know. I
and it's
can't wait to see it.
hey,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm gonna. Everybody should get it, and I will get it because I'm all about that. Dark chocolate. I
yes.
guess it's like 70-80% dark chocolate, or no, because it has sugar in it. I guess that doesn't qualify really.
It
Or
depends. You can buy dark chocolate with monk fruit sweetened or allulose sweetened,
okay,
just a little tiny bit. I'm a chocolate fiend. I love
yeah,
it. Good grief.
okay,
Yeah, what I'm asking everyone to do is just be careful.
yeah.
Read the label.
That's I think the biggest thing is reading the label, and then also what I have found that's worked for me. I don't know about for you. Do you use? So they've got a lot of things out now. They've got the CGMs, which anybody can get and pump it into the back of your arm. Continuous glucose monitors, what the CGM is. Or like MyFitnessPal, which is very basic, but it like, hey, I ate this for breakfast and I ate this for whatever, and so it tracks what you're doing. Now, sugar wise, we really shouldn't. We should have as little sugar as possible, like you said. But it's amazing how much people are getting. But tracking and measuring is my point.
Okay, well, and here's my confession. I don't track. I don't measure. I'm a sloppy cook. Um, and I don't journal. And I don't have a CGM.
Well, it works for you,
Because,
so that proves that it works.
well, the idea is it's habits that,
Hmm.
and frankly, anything that adds to what we need to do every day, to the work in front of
Yeah.
us, I'd
Why
say,
make it
yeah,
more
no,
complicated? Yeah.
Why? Because it's really not that complicated. If you look at what you're eating and it's real food, whole food, mostly plants, or if it's meat, you know where it came from and what it
Hmm.
is, you're good. If you just do that,
Hmm.
you will be eating an
You
entire,
don't have
and
much to worry about.
no, and the side benefit is if you're overweight, guess what? It goes away. The weight literally drops off. And I'm not preaching dieting. I'm not preaching losing weight. You know, if you've got a weight problem or one that you perceive to be a weight problem, then you already know and you've read all the stuff and you know why you would want to fix it. You know that it's a problem for your feet and but guess what? I, here's a way to fix it without dieting, without struggling. Just eat real food.
I think that it just takes a little bit of effort. You know, the best advice I heard a long time ago, I think it was Dr. Daniel Amen. I read one of his books, and I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a brain doctor. He's done like the most brain scans of anybody ever. Anyway, he talks about like cleaning your pantry out and putting only stuff that is good for your brain and your body, whatever, right? And so you don't have the option to do anything bad. And so that was a good piece of advice that I took a long time ago. But I don't think anyone understands. Like you say no sugar, obviously it's life or death for you. Say no sugar because I just know the ramifications. But I think until you actually do it, even I was like, wow, the differences in my body, the differences, I just think you got to go through it. You got to do it. And you got to put just a little bit of time into, okay, is this asking myself before I eat, did this come from the earth? Is this a whole food? Is it, where did it come from? I think that's a big piece of it because but they're putting stuff in front of people at the grocery store that comes from a farm and it's a fish and it's not wild caught or whatever, feeding
And that
them
it's
junk.
polluting the earth. So
Yeah.
when you do this, when you feed yourself better, you're doing all these other good things. You're producing less trash, less crap. You're doing a good thing for the environment, and your kids. I mean, hello. You're setting an example for them. You're feeding them better, but your food actually will look better. It will taste better. It will keep just fine as long as you're sensible about it, but you won't be eating preservatives anymore. Uh, I mean, when you start thinking really about the difference, and you'll see it in your skin. And a thing that we talked about before you hit the record button is that I recently had a
Hmm.
violent gardening incident. It was me and this vine struggling for life, and the vine won. And I ended up on my butt in the gravel with a seriously broken femur up at my hip. And so ambulance and surgery and, the whole thing, with me thinking the whole time, well, I've done it now, that's what they say when you're 80. And if you break a hip or a femur, you'll be in a wheelchair the rest of your life. And rah, rah, rah. Well, not so, because as I told Frank, I'm happy and proud to say that the medicals who worked on me, the surgeon, the wonderful nurses and NPs, such a great staff, and I had really great help. They all said in one way or another, very directly, we don't see women your age who are in the condition that you are. We just don't. And we're so happy for you that you are going to have a complete recovery. You're going to be fine. Your bone is going to heal. Uh, and the surgeon said to me the day after the surgery, he called and said, I got to tell you, you've been keeping me up last night. And I thought I should call and check in because I think I know what kind of person you are. And I think you're going to push this too hard. So I want you to know that you need to keep your weight off that leg until it's healed, which will be about 6 weeks. And then, and so he went on to describe, and he said, we all have soft bones. He said, I have soft bones. I'm a surgeon. I have soft bones. I know about soft bones. But if you have good muscle like you had, you can protect yourself bones. And which is not to say you shouldn't eat for bone health, because that is a thing and you can
Mhm.
improve your bone health eating well. But what was news for me, I don't know why it just never registered, is if you have the muscle in your body to protect your bones, you'll do fine, or do better, certainly, than you would otherwise. So that's
That's
why I'm,
that's interesting the way you say it. Well, first of all, I'll tell everybody what I told you, which was you're one of the very few people that can sit here. I mean, there's others, but one of the few that can sit here and say on the other end of it, look at what I've done and this is the benefit. If you want to call this a benefit, the silver lining of the situation.
it's a huge silver lining as far as
For
I'm concerned.
sure. I've never looked at the muscle piece in the way I've never looked at it. I mean, recently that's coming out about how important muscle is to longevity. So there's a lot of conversation about that with a lot of different doctors right now and people that are in the health space, mostly from the fact that it consumes the glucose, so it's not just in your bloodstream and all this type of stuff. But this is another reason I never thought about, but it's just protecting your bones, like you said. And so, obviously making sure your bone health is good. And I did read something that like high impact training is good for bone density, especially for women because of, that kind of thing. But having muscle, and that's why now we could go back to this maybe. I don't know if you do this in your book. There's a difference when you talk about protein, plant-based protein versus animal-based protein. But protein, just getting protein, I think is a big part of it. And then, you can get into the quality and that kind of stuff. But having protein to build the muscle. So I'm curious to know like, for anyone that's listening, that's like, hey, what did she do? Because they probably don't want to hear what I do. They want to hear what you do and what you did to work out, exercise, sleep. Like, what did you focus on along with the diet, being a diabetic, and then maybe if you weren't a diabetic?
Well, I want to recommend this to everybody, especially you women who are often too busy with your house, your kids, your husband, your area, and everything, to really take the time to work out. And I was working out 4 days a week before my accident. I'll be back at it soon, I'm happy to say. But my routine was 4 mornings a week. I did a solid hour of hard work with a trainer who was PT trained, so he wasn't going to injure me. A great guy. Thank you, Tiago. And it was fun. And the benefit was not only that you keep your weight down, you keep your muscles stronger. Women don't have upper body strength normally because they just haven't done those things, to keep. So it's very important, I think, especially for women, to do a workout that is a strength training, resistance training workout for your upper body as well as your whole body, and mobility, all of it. But the big benefit was that I live in a little country village, and there were women that I didn't know well, and now they're pals. We have this great little community of people who met at the gym and care for each other, and especially the older you get. And I mean, younger moms need this too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the whole village concept, it's a real thing
Mm-hmm.
if you're trying to take care of families or whatever. So not only did I come out of it with stronger muscles and better survival, and I've got some guns on me. I can't show you because I have a black,
Yeah.
but um, but I came out of it with a stronger social network.
Mm-hmm.
Huge, huge. And so as I've been recovering from this garden incident, um, my friends have come over and sat with me, and we've had some wonderful conversations. And we don't often get the opportunity to just sit with our friends, one friend or two friends, and just talk. And it's so nourishing. And of course, I offered food, but
Yeah.
they brought food, Frank. I mean, and how it's as old as time. My friends showed up with food that they had lovingly made, knowing that I was not going to be in the kitchen doing it, and not knowing how much my husband would be able to do. So it's been this kind of 4-week party of sorts with people arriving for good conversation with good food. That's also in my book a silver lining. So
Mm-hmm.
find a way. If you don't have a little local gym, create one. Find somebody, hire somebody, work with your friends to make it happen. I mean, I'm not a big believer in this sort of, gym on Main Street that's all full of men and women and sweaty people and everything. I kind of am more comfortable in something a little more local and friendly, um, and I don't want to feel like I'm competing. I hear that from people that
Yeah.
if you go to some gyms, you feel like you're just this spud, because you can't do what those folks are doing. But find something that suits you, that's your style, that's healthy and safe, and do it. And do it at least 3 times a week if you possibly can. And of course, walk. You've heard all this. You know this. Everybody knows this. But that saved, I think, my life.
It's very interesting. And so exercise clear. Obviously, you've been doing that for a long time. Good for you. So that's huge. Anything you want to say about sleep?
Thank you for bringing that up. Absolutely. As a culture, we are so crazy stupid about sleep. And I blame the medical establishment. I mean, it used to be, you've heard this, you know this probably already, but the secret is out that doctors, when they were being trained, when they were residents, when they were in med school, it was considered wimpy to sleep. It was a thing that you didn't do unless you were just weak. And apparently that traces back to, I think it was in Casey Means' book, it traces back to one guy in the early movement around medical schools that preached this. And he was very demeaning about anyone who had to stop and rest and sleep. And then he died. And then it turned out, people found out that he was a cocaine addict. But
Sweet.
we're still looking at sleep as being something that you only do if you just give up because you're
Yeah.
just not strong enough. So, first of all, here's the important note. You only heal from anything in deepest sleep, in REM sleep. So if you have anything, a zit, a scratch, anything that you're healing from, you must sleep in order to heal. Boy, when I understood that, I thought, wow,
It's
does everyone
powerful.
do that? Yeah, it is
No,
powerful.
very few people know that.
Yeah, so that's huge. And then personality wise, you will improve yourself dramatically if you get a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
Um, and everything about your body needs to rest. And also, we could go into a thing about dreams, about getting information from sleep, but that's not the show today. That'll be another
Yeah.
show. Um,
Well, part two.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, and so to me, and I'm also a lark by nature, when it gets dark, I'm like, okay, it's probably time to slow down. And I'm a big believer. I don't watch TV, and um, I'm a big believer in being quiet. I think we have not enough quiet in our lives. And also, this little incident with the vine has reacquainted me with what a joy it is sometimes just to be still. And I'm not
That's a huge one. I think that's a big one.
talking about a meditation practice or whatever. That's fine if you want to do that. But I mean just being still and listening and looking.
I agree. One of my favorite times of the day is when I try to make it happen as much as possible, but just 10 minutes in the morning when no one's up and just be.
And
I love that.
that's the big secret too. About, and I have this conversation with a lot of the moms in their 40s who are just like, oh, the kids and the job and everything is crazy. If you wake up at 4 or 5 and put in 2 hours you've done a day's work.
Mhm.
If it's quiet, your mind is clear, you've rested. And my little grim story about when my kids were tiny and I, single mom and so on, I would put them and myself to bed at 8, and there was no negotiating. It's like, no, that's bedtime. Bye bye. You can holler, you can do whatever you want. I'm sorry, bedtime. Which moms don't do that anymore, right? They're like,
Yeah.
but his feelings. What is he feeling about bedtime? Okay, go to bed, 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then I would sleep until 2, and I would get up and work until 6 or 7. And then the kids and breakfast, and then we would go and deliver. I was a copywriter at the time. So we'd go and I would deliver my work. But in that little period of time, I did a day's work because I could, because my
Mhm.
brain, and the rest of the day it deteriorated from there, right? As any parent
Yeah.
knows.
Yeah.
But it's magic. It's magic if you go to bed at a decent hour and get up early.
I
It really.
agree. And I think too, listening to your body. I mean, I look, it just the bottom line is I'm extreme. I do a lot of stuff. I'm up early. I'm doing a lot of crazy workouts and stuff, but I need 7 to 8 hours. So I'm gonna get it. And that's just all there is to it. So I go to bed really early. But everybody just needs to listen to their body, I think. But most people need that around that amount of sleep.
I like 9.
Hey, good for you. That's not normal for me, but I've done it. But 8 is about great. 7 to 8 is, but 8 to I could do 9 probably.
It's good. But also 9 is a real privilege. And that's
Yeah.
what I also want people to understand. For so long, we've bought this story that getting older meant not doing and not doing without and being weaker. And you know what? You're freer than you've ever been in your life.
Mhm.
You're probably better off financially. Your relationships have probably settled into something that works for you. You're no longer all hormone crazed and or in the case of women, you're not prey anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
we get so accustomed to it that you live your life around that.
Hmm.
And people talk about older women being invisible. Well, what's wrong with that? I love the whole invisible idea. Talk about a power. That's great. Um,
Yeah.
and I love that I'm allowed to flirt with anybody. I mean, I get to flirt with babies, with golden retrievers, with somebody's bird, with their kids. I can go through Trader Joe's and party, right? Because I'm just this
Yeah.
old lady. Yeah.
That's great.
Well, it is great. And you do, I think, lose your taste for travel. Like a lot of us, I did a lot of that and on my own by myself, didn't think about it. One-way tickets to places and very little, and we didn't have phones. You weren't going to
Yep.
call anybody and get bailed out. You just went.
Yeah.
But at this stage of my life, it's hard to blast me out of here. I'm loving being home and in my little community. But yeah, get old. It's swell.
Yeah. Well, we're all on our way. I can tell you that much.
That's right. Well,
Um,
within a month we are. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah. What
Yeah.
is there anything that we didn't mention today that we should before we wrap up? Is there anything that people should know that we didn't talk about? I mean, obviously you want them to get your book, but is there anything that we didn't talk about that we should or we should tell them?
Oh, I'm sure I'll think of 1,000 things after we're done, because like you, this conversation is a long one for me and one that
Mhm.
I, it's my mission. And
Yeah.
I want people to understand that I don't make any money from this book. I mean, nothing wrong with making money, but believe me, it's an expensive proposition to put a book out. It's available on Audible. For those of you who listen in the car, it's a crazy idea to have an Audible cookbook, but people have told me they really enjoy because there are a lot of stories in it. Only about half the book is recipes. And
Okay.
the rest of it is what we've talked about today, the why and how to change the way you eat. I give a very careful list of here's what you need in your pantry, and here's what you get rid of in your pantry. Now here's your do's and here's your don'ts. I'll give you an example. One thing that very few of us do that is a great idea is leafy greens 3 times a day. So much of what I talk about is not what not to eat. I talk about what to be sure and eat. And if you are eating all the stuff that you will benefit from eating, you don't have room for the crap. I mean, I want to fill your tummy up with great, nourishing food, but you just might not have thought about it quite that way. So that example, leafy greens 3 times. I tell you how to do it. I tell you how to do it with takeout. Here's the thing. Can I give a tip, a grandma
Of
tip?
course.
We do have a wonderful taqueria in my little town, and fresh ingredients, nice folks. It's, all good. And so we will get a shrimp burrito, hold the rice, it's local shrimp, and bring it home and cut it in 2 or 3 pieces. Put it on a bed that you can do in a hurry of finely chopped cabbage or arugula, greens underneath. You put that third of a burrito on there, and then you put a little extra salsa, a little extra cheese or cheese-like substance if you prefer, and you nuke it. And now you've got 3 meals instead of 1, and it's an appropriate size, and you've eaten your greens. And you can text me and thank me for that.
That's a good tip. I drink a green drink a lot, or a sport, like another drink too in the morning, but that's a good way to do it too, because you never know. You want to get it from the real source, so I think that's always better.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I don't do supplements, and I don't do
Yeah,
stuff in a jar that,
yeah,
getting protein is a thing. You do need to kind of work at it to get quality protein, especially if you're not eating meat. I do eat meat. I've been vegan. For 6 months, I experimented, strict vegan. My numbers were gorgeous. It's a fine way to go, but it's more trouble
yeah.
because you really have to work at getting your plant protein in a yummy, consistent way. And you certainly can't do it eating out. Anybody that says that they're a healthy vegan who is eating croissants at
Yeah,
Starbucks, no, that's not being a vegan. Also, yeah, coffee, good coffee, black,
that's how I
nothing,
drink it, black.
nothing in it. You just
Yeah,
can't. So, it's doing the tweaks and finding the little ways, but first, commitment. If you don't understand how important it is, if you don't commit to it for yourself and for the people you love, it's not going to happen. And if you don't do it, you can't really be healthy.
love it, love it. Lynn, thank you for sharing all of this with us. I appreciate it. And
Well,
I hope your leg heals up fast. It's
it was
crazy. I appreciate you still coming on and being a trooper. That's amazing. And you don't even look like it's bothering you, which is amazing.
not. I mean,
Yeah.
it is when we get off
Yeah.
the air,
Yeah.
I will potty mouth my way in the other room. I mean, it's just like,
Yeah.
but yes, it's all good. I'm 4 weeks into it now, and I only have another couple of weeks to go before I've been told I will be off my walker, which I love the way this. I've always been off my walker, but
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we want everyone to get the book Brownies for Breakfast. And we'll put, when I put this out, we'll put the link to the book and anything else in
I
the
send
notes.
stuff because I love hearing from people, and I send out new tips, new recipes.
Love it. Okay, great. Great. Thank you. And everybody, thanks for tuning in. And we will catch everybody on the next episode.
Big fun.
Take care,
Thanks.
everybody. Absolutely. Bye bye.